Have you ever heard of the disciple who brought his friend to Jesus with the simple invitation, "Come and see"? That was Philip, one of the 12 apostles. And his story is a powerful reminder that sometimes the simplest acts of faith can lead to the most extraordinary journeys. Today, we're diving deep into the life of the Apostle Philip, a man whose practical mind and earnest heart made him a key figure in the early days of Christianity. So, who was Philip? The Gospel of John tells us he was from Bethsaida, the same town as Andrew and Peter. This detail is interesting because it paints a picture of a close-knit community. These weren't strangers chosen at random. They were likely friends, or at least knew of each other before Jesus called them. When Jesus found Philip, his call was direct and simple. "Follow me." And Philip did, just like that. What's really fascinating is what Philip did next. He didn't just keep this incredible encounter to himself. He immediately went and found his friend, Nathanael. Now, Nathanael was a bit of a skeptic when Philip told him, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." Nathanael's response was famously skeptical. "Nazareth? Can anything good come from there?" Think about that for a moment. It's a very human reaction, right? We all have our biases and preconceived notions, but Philip's response is pure gold. He doesn't argue. He doesn't get into a theological debate. He just says, "Come and see." This simple, confident invitation is one of the most powerful evangelistic tools in the entire Bible. It's a lesson for all of us. Sometimes, the best way to share our faith is not through complex arguments, but by inviting people to experience it for themselves. Philip's personality seems to be that of a practical, down-to-earth person. He appears to think in terms of numbers and logistics. We see this clearly during the feeding of the 5,000. When Jesus saw the massive crowd, he turned to Philip and asked, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He was testing him. And Philip, true to his nature, immediately started crunching the numbers. He replied, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have just a bite." You can almost hear the calculator worry in his head. He saw the problem, analyzed the resources, and concluded it was impossible. He was looking at the situation from a human perspective, a logical perspective. He couldn't yet see the divine solution that Jesus was about to reveal. This moment doesn't make Philip look bad. It makes him relatable. How often do we face a huge problem and immediately think, "This is impossible," because we're only looking at our own limited resources? Philip's reaction highlights the sheer scale of the miracle that was about to happen. It sets the stage for Jesus to show that with God, all things are possible, even feeding thousands with just a few loaves and fish. Another key moment for Philip comes later, during the Last Supper. Some Greeks, who were in Jerusalem for the Passover festival, approached Philip. They wanted to see Jesus. It's significant that they came to Philip. Perhaps his Greek name made him seem more approachable to them. Philip didn't go straight to Jesus. Instead, he went and told Andrew, and then the two of them went together to tell Jesus. This might show a bit of hesitation or a recognition of protocol. He wasn't sure if it was the right time for Jesus to meet with Gentiles. But it also shows his role as a bridge, a connector between different groups of people. He was the gateway for these seekers to get to the Master. The most profound and personal exchange Philip has with Jesus also happens at the Last Supper. Jesus was speaking about the Father and his relationship with him. Philip, still grappling with the full reality of who Jesus is, makes a very direct request. "Lord, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us." It's a bold request, born from a deep, earnest desire to understand. He wanted tangible proof, a direct vision. Jesus' response is both a gentle rebuke and a profound revelation. He says, "Don't you know me, Philip, even after I have been among you such a long time? Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, 'Show us the Father'?" In this moment, Jesus clarifies one of the most central truths of Christianity. He is the perfect representation of God the Father. To see Jesus' love, his compassion, his power is to see the very nature of God. Philip's question, though perhaps a bit naive, prompted one of the most important theological statements in the New Testament. It shows us that it's okay to have questions. It's okay to wrestle with big concepts. Sincere questions, asked with a desire to know God more, can lead to deeper understanding and revelation. Philip's journey was one of gradually moving from a practical, literal understanding to a deeper spiritual one. So, what happened to Philip after the resurrection and ascension of Jesus? The Bible tells us he was in the upper room in Jerusalem with the other apostles, praying and waiting for the Holy Spirit. He was part of that foundational group that would launch the Christian church into the world. From here, we have to turn to early church tradition to piece together the rest of his story. While these accounts aren't in the Bible, they were widely accepted by early Christians. Most traditions say that Philip traveled to Phrygia, a region in modern-day Turkey, to preach the gospel. He is often associated with the city of Hierapolis, a major center for pagan worship. The stories say that Philip, accompanied by his sister Mariamne and the apostle Bartholomew, had great success in Hierapolis. They preached, performed miracles, and many people turned to Christianity. This, of course, angered the local authorities and the priests of the pagan temples, particularly a temple dedicated to a serpent cult. One of the most famous traditions tells of Philip confronting this serpent cult. The story goes that through prayer, he caused the serpent idol to be destroyed and healed many people who had been afflicted by demonic forces associated with the cult. However, this act of divine power led to his arrest. The proconsul and the pagan priests were furious. According to the tradition recorded by Eusebius, an early church historian, Philip was martyred in Hierapolis. The accounts vary on the exact method, with some saying he was crucified and others suggesting he was hung upside down or tied to a tree. Regardless of the specifics, the tradition holds that he remained faithful to the very end, praying for his persecutors and encouraging the new believers. His martyrdom became a powerful testimony, solidifying the faith of the church he had helped to build in that city. In 2011, archaeologists in Turkey announced they had discovered what they believed to be the tomb of the Apostle Philip in here. They found a tomb within the ruins of a church that was built in the 5th century to honor the apostle. While it's impossible to be 100% certain, the location and the historical context strongly suggest this could indeed be the final resting place of the man who first said, "Come and see." So, what is the legacy of the Apostle Philip? First, he is the apostle of the simple invitation. His come-and-see approach is a timeless model for sharing faith. It's not about having all the answers, but about inviting people to experience Jesus for themselves. Second, he is the apostle of the honest question. His practical mind led him to ask logical questions about feeding the crowd, and his earnest heart led him to ask for a vision of the Father. His questions weren't signs of disbelief, but of a genuine desire to understand. This teaches us that faith and questions can coexist. Our journey with God is a process of learning and growing, and our sincere questions can be catalysts for deeper revelation. Finally, Philip's life shows a beautiful transformation. He started as a practical, perhaps even skeptical, man from a small fishing town. He followed Jesus, witnessed his miracles, wrestled with his teachings, and was filled with the Holy Spirit. He then became a fearless missionary who took the gospel to a foreign land and ultimately gave his life for his faith. His journey from "How can we buy enough bread?" to "Lord, show us the Father," and finally to martyrdom in Hierapolis, is a testament to the transformative power of a life dedicated to Jesus. The story of Philip reminds us that God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. He took a practical man with a lot of questions and used him to build his church and reach the nations. And he can do the same with each of us. So next time you're facing an impossible situation or have a deep, nagging question about faith, remember Philip, remember his journey, his honesty, and his ultimate courage. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be inspired to invite someone in your own life to simply come and see. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the life of the Apostle Philip. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about the figures who shaped the early church, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments which apostle or early church figure you'd like me to cover next. Until then, stay curious and keep exploring.